All right, Ironman, Florida, race recap. All right, so I'm going to talk about the race. I'm going to try to make this all one clip so I really don't have to edit it. Be a lot easier to upload. So to run through the quick stats. So 10 hours, 30 minutes, 14 seconds, 23rd place out of 149 within my age group, 25 to 29. And then 158th place out of 1,220 for the gender, and then 164th place out of 1,483 people overall. So in general, I guess that's pretty solid for my first time. Obviously, it's you want to be number one, right? But for my first time, I'm very happy with it, and I'm very happy with my overall time. So I'll run through my splits and what those were for the swim, bike, and the run. So for the swim, it was 1 hour and 11 minutes and 21 seconds. That I couldn't have really asked for any better. My hope was to go between 1 hour and 1 hour and 10 minutes, but I knew I wasn't capable of doing an hour. I just don't have enough time with swimming to be able to do that. Especially in the ocean. It's not in a pool, so you have current and waves and stuff. That said, the water was pretty calm that day, so it was very nice. Definitely to my benefit. But the cool thing is everyone's swimming in the same water. So even if there were huge waves in the water, everyone has to deal with it, so it's kind of like an equalizer. But in terms of your time, which is what I'm kind of thinking, I'm happy about that. But for my age group, I was the 35th fastest swimmer out of the 149 people. Yeah. But overall, yeah, so lap one, I averaged a 147 per 100 meter. The second lap, a 154 per 100 meter. So I guess what I'll do is I'll talk about each as I go through it. So for the swim, yeah, so it's in laps. So you do 2 laps. Each lap is a mile. You do have to get out of the water and run around the pier because you're swimming around a pier. You go way past it, but you do swim around the pier, and then you have to hop out on the beach. I don't know if they count that towards the distance or not. I would think no, but I don't really know. But gumming in the water, yeah. So I guess, how do I want to do this? I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the splits, and then I'll talk about each one separately so I don't have to stare at my phone. So 111 for my swim, which again, I was really happy with that. My transitions were both 8 minutes. Yeah, both 8 minutes, 8:42 and 8:25. The first transition was probably so long because I assume they count the distance to actually get there, because you're going from the beach all the way, you're running through the street barefoot, and then getting all the way to the tent. So I assume that's why that one's longer. The second transition though, coming off the bike, I was cramping. My hamstrings were cramping like crazy, so it was really slow to get my shoes on. But I can talk about that in a minute. But then the bike was 5:28, which I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I wish I could have done better, and I know I could have, and I can talk about why when I get to the bike. But 5:28.15, 33rd out of the 100 whatever in my age group. And then the run, which is where I knew I'd stand out the most. I was 16th in my age group, which again, I know I could have done better in the run for the same reason I could have done better on the bike, and I'll talk about that again when I get to it. But my marathon time was 3 hours and 33 minutes, which I'm happy with that, but again, I know I could have done better. Averaged 8:11 per mile, which was fine. I'm more disappointed now because I know there's a really easy fix I could have done and done better. But whatever, man. Whatever. All right, so I went through those times. I averaged 20.4 miles per hour on the bike, which ideally I would have been a little bit higher, maybe at least closer to 21. But I mean, round up, get closer to 21, which I did average 21 miles an hour a couple of times in here for however long the distance was, but I'll take it. Take it for my first one. Whatever. Cool. So I can move away from the phone. Also, I'm sitting on the floor, so you can have strategically. Well, I have the Ironman hat and the bike always sitting here, but strategically place the Ironman bag just so there's stuff in the background to give context as opposed to just me sitting on the couch and having a white wall. But let's start. So race morning, I felt like I wasn't super nervous until the morning of the race. I think the biggest thing is I kept stressing about all the things you need and getting things in order and like making sure I showed up to things on time and I wasn't missing something I had to be at, which I missed I missed the athlete briefing, which they say it's like mandatory. Obviously it's not, but ideally I would have liked it to have gone, but I missed that. Like I just kind of forgot about it. And then like timing for things I wasn't super sharp on just because I was kind of all over the place, and then mixing that with when I was like peak training, which basically was the entire prep in the terms of like it was just so much. It was just hard to balance life with all that. So that was why I was so ill prepared going into the race in terms of the stuff. Like packing and thinking like, all right, this is what I'll need this day or the day before, food wise and everything. I just really felt scattered the entire time, which I did not like. But I think that was, for me, that's all just a reflection of how much I put into the actual training, because that's arguably the most important part, but the training, and then it's a reflection of how on the edge I was with everything else. Because I just was giving, if I think of my personal capacity, think of like 100%, I felt like I was giving like 98, 99% to literally just training, and then saving the last like 2% for work, for holding up relationships with people, simple basic shit like just everything, like laundry, cooking, cleaning, general hygiene, like everything was put to that 2%. 98% was Ironman training. Like this is the thing. And I don't necessarily have any regrets about that. So I'm just saying just where my mindset was, and I was putting everything into it. Which, coming off of that, it's been nice this week to be kind of chilling. But let me talk about the actual race, because that's the whole point. So, race morning, I felt like waking up when my alarm went off, 4:30 alarm. I felt the nerves a little bit, which was a good sign. I was happy about that, because I was like, do I just not care? Because I didn't feel nervous. And I was kind of, those few days before, I was feeling weird. I just felt like I was in a fucking hole, like mentally in a hole, and not even just about the race, just about life. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I just felt very lost, and it wasn't helping anything. It's cool to be like, oh, on the other side of that now. But in the moment, I was like, what the fuck? So the morning waking up, I was like, okay, cool, I do kind of care about this then, I guess. Because again, I was like, do I even care? And then it's like, if I don't care, I'm not going to have the willingness to want to push, because it's going to get hard, and it got hard as shit. Like, I'm not going to be able to push like I want to. So that worried me. But again, waking up, felt the nerves, but in a good way. Got ready, headed to the beach. It was just like a bunch of people all over each other. It was cool kind of running into people that recognized me from social media. That was like pretty sick. Not in a way of like, ooh, attention. It was more like, one, what I'm doing is working, so I'm beginning to, there's growth in there compared to when I started. I'd get like 2 likes on a post, 3 likes on posts, and then to where it is now. It's been a lot of growth in that time, and that's what I take it as an indicator of that, as well as hopefully they know me in the sense of like, I've made an impact on them in a positive way and can continue doing that. That's what I think is really cool. I even had someone come up to me the morning of the race in transition, because you kind of go to your bike, make sure everything's dialed in. I put my bottles in there and stuff, and then took a fucking picture with me. I was like, that's fucking awesome. And he DM'd me, so I have the picture. So that was cool. But I was talking to this one dude at the beginning of the race. I was filling up my tires, and so was he. And then that kid, the guy came up to take a picture with me, and then after that, the dude I was talking to was like, oh, are you like one of those social media guys? Not in like in a mean way, but in kind of like a oh kind of way, which I completely understand that. I 100% understand that. I was like, yeah. But for me, it's like, I'm not just a social media guy that half-asses all the training and then only does it to be like, oh, I did an Ironman in like 20 hours. It's like, I'm doing this shit. I'm showing my journey and I'm showing how fucking much I'm putting into it. And that's the angle of it, and hopefully to, again, build a life around that shit. But, yeah, so it's like, you're one of the social media guys? I was like, yeah, buddy. Which was funny, but we were still like talking, and then later on that, I guess, as the run and the bike come together, but I saw him on the bike in the run. So yeah, we did all that, got to the start line. You're standing, so like, yeah, fast forward past all that stuff, had to go through the giant bathroom line to go pee, etc., etc. Which then I also met a dude when I was waiting in the line to go pee. We were both waiting in line to go pee, which I saw him on the bike then, which I saw him multiple times throughout the bike, and then towards the end of the bike, we were together. He was ahead of me. I was trying to keep up with him, so shout out to him. His name was Colin. Shout out to that man, because it was motivating me to try to, I was like, I gotta fucking stay up with this guy. But yeah, so I met him when I was going pee before the race. But then fast forward, get down there. So it's like a beach start, obviously, you just run straight into the water. There's like one start line, and it's like a time trial start, so not everyone's starting at the same time. So, rally cars, what that means. So basically, when you cross that finish line, if they just they do have some general clock that runs for the entire time. It's not an accurate time, because you might have started 5 seconds behind it, or you could have started 40 minutes behind it, because that line was long. And I was towards the front of the pack. They have them separated in like times, like what do you think you'll swim, or what are you going for to swim. So I went in the group that was around like 1:10 to 1:15, or like it said like 1 hour to 1:10 or something. That's the group that I started in, and we were close to the front. Like it kind of went straight, and then it L'd off, and then it went far back, and I was like just before the turn, to where we're probably like 30, 40 feet behind the actual start line. But it took forever. I feel like we were standing there. I wasn't extremely nervous then. Like I felt confident, but I was like, you're standing there, you put so much into this, and then you just like, the race is technically started, but you can't go yet. And it's like one by one by one. And I was like, get me out there. So then I kept pulling, and then so when I was sitting there, like I'd take my goggles on and off, because I'm like, oh, I guess we'll go soon, and then we didn't. But what I kept doing was I kept pulling the goggles tighter and tighter, to where when I finished that swim, it like hurt. When I took my goggles off, I was like, oh my God. And even right now, touching it, there's still I guess my fucking skull is still a little bit bruised. But that day after, I mean, even the day, I didn't feel it, but like if I touched my eyes, I'm like, these bitches hurt. So that really hurt. And between lap 1 and lap 2, I popped my goggles up when you're jogging on the beach. And when I went to put them back on, I was like, ooh, that hurts. But I was like, I mean, I'm not. You just, like when you're in that moment, you're like, I don't fucking care. But yeah, so going out, it kind of V's outwards. So like, instead of it being a straight line, it kind of goes like this, and then you go this, and then you V back inward to the beach, and in the center there's the pier. But yeah, I felt really good in the swim. Like right when the swim started, I was like, oh, this is like peaceful. This is nice, because it's kind of loud out there, but not really, because your head's kind of underwater. Obviously, your ears are like in and out of the water, but it was just peaceful. The sun was coming up, and I just felt like I had a morning swim one time when I started swimming and it was dark, and then by the end of the swim, the sun was up. And that's what it was reminding me of. I was like, this is just really nice. I felt confident in what I was doing. I wasn't trying to like overexert myself, because you just know how long the road is ahead of you on that day. So I just felt really good. And then coming around, finished that first lap, and it was cool because you can see, as you're swimming, you can just see the sand get deeper and deeper and deeper. to where when you're all the way out there, you don't even see the bottom. It's just really dark blue, which I'm sure it wasn't. It's not like it was 50 feet deep, but it was pretty deep, I have to assume. But it's not scary. Like if I was out there alone, it'd be scary, but there's so many people around you, and then people and jet skis and like the standing paddle boards to make sure no one fucking drowns or something, that it's not even, it ain't no thing. You don't worry about it. And then, yeah, coming around the second lap at the start. Well, first, when you get out of the water, swimming is so kind of disorienting to where you get out of the water, and even when I'd swim in the pool, it's like you feel a little bit dizzy just because you're sideways, you're floating, you keep twisting your head, and like you're looking down, which is slightly distorted in a way. I don't know. It's just all like confusing. So then when you get out of the water on solid ground, you're kind of like, whoa. So then getting out of the water for the first lap, I was kind of like, whoa. And then you're out of breath too a little bit. So then I jogged up to the second lap. Same thing, and then I started swimming, and I was feeling a cramp on the outside of my ribs. So I knew it was muscular, but then I was like, am I getting a fucking stomach cramp already? And then I kind of started to get down on myself because I'm like, this fucking thing just started, and if I'm going to have stomach issues this whole time, I was like, this is going to go south so fast. But I was like, no, it's a muscular thing. It's on the outside. But I was like, I just started. I'm not really sweating to what I can tell. Obviously, you're in the water and you have a wetsuit on. But what I was doing, though, is I was trying to swim faster. So I'm swimming like I'm going stroke, stroke, breathe, stroke, stroke, breathe. So I'm breathing like every stroke or whatever. And then I was like, all right, so I'm breathing on the same side as well. So I was like, let me kind of slow a little bit, and then I'll switch sides. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, other side, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'll breathe on the opposite side, which helped. So then I did that for like a second, like a few strokes, few breaths or whatever, and then I was like, oh, it went away. So I was like, thank God that went away. And then I just kept doing that pretty much for the rest of the swim because I didn't know I just didn't want that to happen again. So then, yeah, so 147, 150 something was the second lap, which was fine. Had I kept that same pattern going a little bit faster, I would have been like a 150. Maybe my overall time would have been like 110. But that's fine. So then get out of the water, run to the transition. They have people that like rip your wetsuit off, which was awesome. It was kind of funny. So yeah, get to the transition, put your bike shit on, and then hop on the bike. And then right when I got on the bike, you have to like jog your bike through transition, go out the little gate, and then there's a red line, and they're like, all right, you can get on your bike after this line. So I get on my bike, I probably pedal for like 2 seconds, bottle falls off. And that immediately flashed back to my last marathon when I dropped a gel, and I realized how significant that was. And I was like, this bike is 112 miles, that bottle has 100 grams of carbs in it, I'm fucking picking that thing up. So then I hopped off my bike and then picked up the bottle. And then as I was putting the bottle back, some guy was like, dangerous, as he rides by. I was like, fuck you, buddy. Bikers are always assholes, even in the race. I was like, I'm right here. There's a whole fucking road. Just don't hit me. And when I got off my bike, there was nobody behind me. Like, no one was riding behind me. But I was right by a transition, sort of, probably like 20 feet away from it. But whatever, I don't care. I was like, I'm not leaving this bottle. So then I go to put it back in, and then it almost falls out again, or it does, but I caught it as I was doing that. So for the entire time I had that 100-gram carb bottle, which that lasted me a little over an hour, probably like an hour and a half or something. I was holding it, like when I was in aero, I was just holding the bottle. Because I had the one, I guess I could show you. So I had the frame bottle, which that one does good. The bottle never falls out there. I had the bottle here with the straw, so that I can be in aero and drink out of it. But then I had that bottle right here that fell out, and those cup holders fucking suck. So when I was in aero, I would just hold the bottle, and it would like stay in the middle of the aero bar, so it wouldn't fall through. So I can just kind of press it down with my thumbs, and then drink when I need to, which was kind of fucking annoying, but it wasn't terrible. which was nice the course wasn't like if there was a bunch of uphills, like I would put it in my mouth on the uphills and stuff like that, but whatever, it was fine. And then when I finished that bottle, I put it in the aero suit and zipped it up. So for the entire ride, I had a bottle sticking out of my chest, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I was just happy to finish that bottle because I'm tired of holding this thing. And then, yeah, so feeling wise, I used G1M Sport in all my bottles, which I hadn't used in a while, which is definitely not something you should theoretically do going into a race, doing something like new. That said, I haven't used it for a while, but I have used it a while. And I knew that there were only like a handful of times that it really messed up my stomach, and it was more so when I first started using it. So I was like, hopefully I'll be good, because I'm about a pound, like 400 grams of carbs of just that on the bike. Plus, I had some gels, and I had shoved a granola bar in my face in transition. But my mouth was so dry, I was like, oh. It took me like 20 minutes to eat it, which is funny. So yeah, so 400 grams of carbs of just G1M when I was on the bike. So I was like, if this shit's gonna fuck my stomach up, so be it. But whatever, it didn't, so that was nice. And then the bike was solid in general. I got that drafting penalty, which it was kind of confusing because I knew like drafting wasn't legal in the Ironman races. But there were so many people at the start, and like everyone was riding on everyone's ass, so I was like, maybe it's okay or something. But apparently not, at least not for me. Which, obviously, I'm not the only one that got a penalty. When I stopped at the tent, the ladies were like, yeah, there's a bunch of people coming. And I was like, whatever. But yeah, so 3 minutes of just standstill. But lame. But it definitely made a difference, though, when you drafted. I was like, this is nice. Which is, I guess, is why you can't do it. So yeah. But the bike went well. You're riding with, the roads are like sort of blocked off, but I mean, cars are still coming both ways. So I'm sure every car that drove by was pissed because there's like a trillion people on bikes just blocking up the road, but hey man, that's how it goes. So yeah, so there was that. Got that drafting penalty probably around like mile 20 something. And then there were only 2 penalty tents, and there was the one I stopped at, which was like past mile 60 or right around that range, 60 something. And then there's one at the very end of the race. And during that time, when I first got the penalty, it kind of pissed me off because I was like, so is everyone else. And then, which was funny because there's a dude on a motorcycle and then the referee motherfucker on the back of the motorcycle. And he's like, 2 dudes just like crunched up. And he's like, you have a penalty. I was like, all right, pussy. Whatever. And then he rode up like 10 people in front and then stopped next to someone else and was like, so I'm sure that guy got the same thing. But it's whatever. It's the rules. But yeah, so that kind of made me mad. So then for a while there, I was like, because I was like, then what am I supposed to do? Because there's all these fucking people. I'm going to be like, I can't stay 6 bike lanes behind people or bike lengths because there's so many people. And then it's like, I'm not trying to hog this left side where you're trying to pass people. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So it was starting to piss me off. So then I started riding harder because I was like, I just want to be alone and I don't have to worry about it. And that's typically what I like to do in races anyways. Just in general, like be on my own. I don't really want to be around anybody. So then I started doing that and I'd come up with people and be like, fuck you, and then just pass them. Like, fuck you, pass them. Which I probably shouldn't have totally done because towards the end of the race, obviously my legs started to get pretty tired. But basically what I should have done was used... I think maybe I'm going too into depth on this little breakdown. But basically after mile 60, I was kind of like, I'm pretty tired of this. I'm ready to start running. But what I needed sodium on the bike, and I'm disappointed I did not prepare better for that. I had a bag of salt in my back pocket on the aero suit, but I didn't use it on the bike. But I kind of got confused because I wasn't like really sweating. Like because it was kind of cold almost. When I was on the bike, like squeezing the bottle, my thumb was kind of giving out because my hands were cold. the weather was probably like 50s, 60s. It was like perfect weather for that race, but I was kind of cold and I wasn't really sweating at all from what I could even notice. So I was kind of like, I guess maybe I'm good, but I think you still will use the sodium even if you're not sweating or whatever. I don't really know. But towards the end of the bike, because I did pee my pants on the bike too, so I had to like stop pedaling, and then I peed my pants, and then I think I probably lost a lot of salt doing that as well. Because sometimes I'll notice that, like when I come back from runs or if I go on a run, like you can tell when the pee like really dehydrates you. Like sometimes you're like, that was all the water in my body. It's weird, but that's kind of how that pee felt. It's like analyzing my pee, but that's kind of what it felt like. And then you can tell when it dries too, all the white lines or whatever. So it's all just like salt stuff. So on the end of that, I should have used sodium, because then, well, I had the example of one of the 100-mile rides I did. This one was like, I think this was the longest ride I did. I did like 116 or something like that. I started like actually cramping on the bike to where I'd pedal and my quads would cramp up and my calves were locking up. So I went to a gas station, I got salt, and then I drank an electrolyte drink. But then when I got back on the bike, I wasn't cramping obviously, but my muscles felt fresh. Like I felt like I just got on the bike, which was crazy. So that's what I needed to do on this fucking ride, which looking back kind of pisses me off now. I needed more sodium, need more electrolytes. And that I'm also confident with that because when I got off the bike, I was cramping in transition. So had I done that, I guaranteed would have been able to push harder on the bike, especially at the end, because I know, one, how it felt, and two, I have the evidence of like I was cramping and stuff. But essentially how that works is like, because I was kind of looking it up, I was like, why actually is that? Because electrolytes, well, I've talked about this, I made a reel about this a really long time ago, but electrolytes, electrics, whatever signals in your brain, I don't know, you have all the signals in your brain that are essentially electric. Is electric the right word? I don't know, but they help facilitate all that. So sodium, in the sense of like your nervous system, it's a action potential. So like your nervous system's like, all right, we're gonna tell this muscle to do its thing. And so sodium facilitates that message or whatever. So when you don't have it, that action potential gets sent out, or it doesn't really get sent out. I don't necessarily know how it works. But sodium is a big facilitator within that process, and it reaching your muscle to actually use it. Why it cramps, I don't necessarily know, because they're saying something about like once that action potential thing reaches your muscle, then the muscle releases like calcium, and what helps actually contract the muscle. And then it said like for something to happen, or for your muscles to relax, that calcium has to go back in, or have to go back, like get stored. So maybe the calcium you didn't use or something. And maybe if it doesn't relax, like that doesn't go back in, or you don't have enough of it, maybe that's how you get a cramp. I'm not really sure. But essentially like that's my evidence. From one, I have like actual physical evidence from what I felt during that training ride, and then some little bit of science from a very bad science lesson from me. Call me Andrew Huberman or something. So that's how the bike went. Overall, I was happy with it, but looking back, I know I could have done better for that reason alone with just the sodium. And then, so getting into transition, I took that bag of salt out that I had, which opened up either in the swim or on the bike, but it was all wet. So it was like sandy salt, but I was like, I need it. So I took a bunch of that salt and then washed it down with water, as well as I had one Element electrolyte package that had 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it, which I just threw in the transition bag, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to use this, but I was like, I'll just put it in there because why not? And ended up using it, and it was a big, it had to have been a huge help for me because I wasn't cramping after I took the salt and those, which, right, obviously. So I did that in transition, and that transition was slower because I couldn't like bend over to tie my shoes and stuff because I was cramping. So I had to like try to get my shoes on with my feet while like sitting down, and then when I tied my shoes I had to stand up and then like not bend my knees and then hunch over and tie my shoes, which I was able to end up doing. And then that's when I then did the salt stuff and the sodium electrolyte stuff. And then we started running. So then I felt really good going into the run, which again, I think is another sign of just the sodium stuff. But in general, in all the brick workouts I've done, I pretty much always feel pretty solid going into the run, which is nice. To where on like mile 1, I was running like a 650, or I was running a 650 pace or whatever, and I was like, I need to slow down. But I was like, it feels good. And one of the things that's weird is it always feels like I'm going super slow. So whether I was doing that 650 or I was trying to slow down, I was like, I feel like, I'm like, is my watch lying to me? Because it feels like I'm running like a 9-minute mile. It's so weird, and it happened all the time during the training runs. I was like, why does it feel like I'm going so damn slow? But I think it's just because on the bike you're going so much faster, I guess, and your like perception is used to being on the bike when things are going past you fast as opposed to the run. That's kind of my thought process behind it. But in general, felt great. And they have your name on the bib, so it'll say like Liam or whatever. And when you come right out of the transition, someone was like, let's go Liam. And I like looked back because I was surprised, but in like a funny way of like, how the fuck did they just know my name? And then I was like, oh right, the bib says my name. So it kind of threw me off for a second. But it was kind of nice because during the race, like, people were just calling out people's names on their bibs. And so they'd be like, go Dan, go Liam, go Dave, whatever. So it kind of added like a personal touch, even though you know, like, they just looked at your bib. But it was nice. You're kind of like, ah, that feels good in a way. But yeah, so the run felt good at the start. And then it was 2 laps, which essentially they weren't even laps, or 2 loops. And they weren't even really loops. It was more of just like a straight out and straight back. There was no like center part. So you're just running against people the entire time, which in some points it was pretty tight. And if you're trying to pass people, it was kind of annoying because I'd be like, you'd have to slow down to wait for people to come by, and like, so it was a little bit obnoxious at points. But in general, it was kind of nice because it was just motivating to see everybody around, and you see the people ahead of you. You also don't know where really anyone's at. So like, I'm starting my first lap, I'm like, this guy, some people are finishing their second lap, which was crazy. Which, speaking of that, when I was kind of, it's 6.5 miles out, obviously 6.5 back, 13.1 miles, or 13 miles or whatever, for the half, and then you do another lap, you get 26 for the mile, or marathon. But on that first 6.5 outwards on lap 1, there was a dude that was finishing his lap 2, and we were running together because he was like, hey, can I like ask you for something? And I was like, what, is this guy gonna confide in me right now? But he was like, do you want to run with me or whatever? Like, I need help, can you help me out? And I was like, yeah. And then I asked him what pace he was going for, and he was like 7:30, and he was trying to go under 9 hours for his total time, which when he told me he had an hour to do it halfway through my first lap. So 6.5 miles in, he had 6.5 miles left. And he was like, I have still an hour to make it. Which, I mean, he should have made it unless he started walking, which is awesome. I forget what the fuck the guy's name was and or bib number. But he asked me my bib number, and I was like, 1375. So I wonder if he remembers. I wish I remembered his. I don't. I'm really bad at remembering things. But we were running together, and right at the turnaround point, I started to get a massive cramp in my abs. It wasn't stomach, it was my abs. And I was like, oh, I can't breathe. Like, it was one of those where it was like I had to literally stop and like be pushing on it. And then after not much time, it did go away, but it was to the point where he was gone. But I wish I would have stayed with him because we were holding 7. Honestly, I shouldn't have been running that fast either, but we were running 7:15s. I mean, the entire time we were together, which was basically the entire first lap, or first half of the first lap. Because I met him pretty early on, probably not even a full mile out, and then we were running together. Until I got that massive fucking cramp. And I was like, oh, I might have to slow down. Like, I couldn't even talk because I had a cramp, and he was like, it's all right, man, give it a name. But I was like, And I'm still on lap 1, so I'm not trying to completely blow my race just to stay with him. Again, although it would have been really nice. So yeah, so that's how that went, and then he went on, so hopefully he got under 9 hours. But then right at that turnaround point, there's one of the aid stations, so I walked to that aid station, and then honestly, not long after that, it pretty much went away. Thank the Lord. And then felt really good that first lap. I don't know what I was like looking at my pace, but not paying too close of attention to it. But that whole first lap, I probably still averaged like a 7:30 or 7:30 something mile. And then starting lap 2, you're going out, still feeling solid. And at that point, I was walking the aid stations, which I'm trying to remember like the first one I walked. I know I walked the one with the cramp, but I didn't walk every one after that, not to what I remember. But at some point on lap 2, on that way out, I started walking all the aid stations because I was like, that's when it started to get harder. I still kind of wish I would have pushed past that a little bit to where at the end, just because it wouldn't have made that big of a dent in my time. But yeah, so then going out still felt solid, and then I would say at the turnaround point of lap 2 was when you're really like, whoa, baby. I was talking to one guy literally right at the turnaround, and then we were talking, and then he was like, I think he asked me what lap I was on, and then, or he said something about being on lap 1, and then he was like, what lap are you on? And then I was like, lap 2, I'm finishing this bitch up or whatever. And he was like, oh, that's hype. He was like, this is hype. He might have been like, oh, this is hype, finishing, rounding lap 1 or something like that. And then he was like, what lap are you on? I'm like, lap 2. And then he was like, this is so not hype. And that's why it was just a funny encounter. And then I started laughing, and I was like, I literally just was like, that was funny. You said, this is so not hype. It's fucking stupid, but it was really funny in the moment. Everyone, you're just like suffering. And then, yeah, at that point, that 6.5 miles back of lap 2 was a sufferfest. But this is where I'm so persistent on, if I had that fucking sodium, and if I wasn't a goddamn fool, I think I could have just done that much better on the bike and then in the run again. Because then towards the end of the run, probably like 4-4 miles out, both my hamstrings cramped up. So like they took turns. So like one cramped up, I had to like walk for a second, and then it went away pretty quickly, which was nice. And then not long after, the other one locked up, and then I had to walk for a minute, but it went away. And then my calves were kind of doing that, and my feet were kind of cramping up a bit, but I was running through those. I feel like the hamstrings are like so, you can't really run through a full-on hamstring cramp. I feel like everyone has had one before. It's like, you know what that feels like. And it just, your leg, instead of being this, is just stuck. But so those, and then just muscular-wise, because by the end of the run, my heart rate, the highest I saw it go was 151 the entire race. And by the lap 2, my heart rate was just sitting in the 130s, like maybe high 130s, high mid 130s. And I'm pushing, by the start of lap 2, I was still averaging something in the 7s. My average definitely got thrown off when I was walking the aid stations, obviously. So like I'd hit a mile marker and it would say whatever, but that wasn't necessarily representative of the pace I was running. It was just like, within this distance, you took this much time. Because I ran here, I walked here. So it's not emblematic of the pace I was actually running. It's emblematic of the entire time it took me to do that. If that makes any sense. It's not like an excuse, it's just to show, to say like the pace I was holding. But between aid stations, so I needed those aid stations because that's why I was walking them. But, forget what I was even saying. But your legs just get so, I was talking about my heart rate. So like my heart rate was relatively low, 130s. I would almost guarantee by the end of lap 1. It was like 140s. It was high 140s where I saw a max of 151 on the first lap. And then by the end of that, it was probably low 140s to the high 130s. But by the end of the actual race, my heart rate was in the 130s consistently. Because it was just so hard to push enough to get your heart rate even up. My legs, muscular-wise, they were just so cooked. And that's, again, where I think having that sodium would have really helped tremendously. Because, again, I was cramping up and all that stuff. But walking aid stations, running, I was just taking it like aid station by aid station. I would run and I'd be like, I'm not walking in between. But I was like, that next one, I fucking need it. And all the volunteers were in pink shirts. So you'd be a while away and you could see them. And I'd be like, just make it to there. You just gotta make it there. So then we did that. And then right around like a mile out, you get pretty close to where all the people are at. And you kind of feed off that energy. And then you're like, I'm so close. It's crazy because then you turn on some hidden gear to where, I don't know, my watch ended up dying at the end of the marathon, probably like a few miles out. So I don't know what my pace was, but it felt like I was fucking cooking. Maybe I was just moving down to like a mid to low 7 at that point, but it felt like I was freaking sprinting. And I don't know, it's just cool to think how you can find that extra gear when it feels like you don't have it. And mainly just because people are around and you get excited because the finish line's coming up. But I was like, I'm not finished. Like in high school, when you run, and in grade school, when you ran cross country, it was always like, you always finish strong. You run it, you sprint. You just run as fast as you can at the end. Like it's always like that. I think it is for anybody. But I was like, I'm not gonna like jog, calmly jog into the finish line. I gotta run, freaking run, sprint, work. So yeah, did that into the finish line. Fed off that energy, and it was like when you're going on lap 1 to lap 2, it'll say like second lap arrow, or it'd be like finish line arrow, and on that first lap you come to the end, and it's either do a second lap or go to the finish line. I remember running past it the first time and I was literally like, let me finish, I just want to be done. I didn't just want to be done because it is a really fun, as hard as it is, it was just like really fun. But I was like, I'm so close. You're so close. Just one more lap. One more loop or whatever. But yeah, rounding that last couple miles, you find that extra gear somehow. And then you come in, you turn the corner, and then like the aero suit had it zipped down. And then some guy's like, zip up your aero suit. He's like, zip it up, zip it up. I guess that's good for pictures. I don't fucking know. But I zipped it up. I was like, okay. But I was like half crying, half smiling. I was doing both, and just not, and all that stuff. And then you finally see, like I saw the carpet, but it's like the day before they had the carpet all laid out and stuff to the finish line. But I was like, I can't touch it yet. But it was just like a cool little moment to come around that finish line, because on social media, that's what you see is always the picture, like the iconic Ironman finish line. I wish it had the little ramp up, because I feel like they always have a ramp, or a lot of them do. But either way, it's like iconic to the Ironman race is that finish in that carpet. And it was kind of cool to finally be like, I'm on it, to finally touch it and be like, I'm the one in the fucking finish line. I've seen it for so goddamn long, and now it's like, I'm here. I'm fucking here. We did it. It was awesome. And then another moment I want to talk about from being on the run, because, well, one of the cool things about being in that whole area, is you're surrounded by so many people that have been working just as hard, if not harder, than you have for this race and just in general and multiple times in their past. And they're all suffering through the exact same thing you are that same day. And even all the spectators, whether they've done one or not, they all know exactly what you're doing, exactly what you're going through. And it's it's a very kind of peaceful, calm type of feeling of like, these people know, they understand, they get it. And it was really cool. And I remember one point on the run, it was on lap 1, at the turnaround point, so it was already past halfway of that. There was some lady that was like, and this happened on my first marathon too, but this lady said something so, I don't exactly remember what she said, but it was just so, in such a loving, like, motherly kind of push. It was, what the fuck did she say? I don't know, just something like keep going, whatever, like finish, whatever. But it just felt like so genuine. I was like, it felt as though she truly meant it, as if she was like my mom saying that. And that made me tear up too when I was running, and I was like, no fucking way. And then, not to me crying, but to just be like, this is crazy. Like, it's just so much. It was just so much to take in at once. But yeah, so that made me cry a little bit. Or at least tear up. I was kind of like, you're kind of running, smiling, tearing, like looking like a goober, but I did not care. But yeah, so that was a cool moment. And then seeing people, because you're running right past people, so seeing a lot of people that like recognized me, whether it was in the crowd or on the run, and I met people on the bike too. It was cool. It was really cool for me. It motivated me a lot, and I hope it motivated them. Again, it's like a cool indicator of just my progress, in that I hope that as well I'm motivating them and making some sort of positive impact on these people. And I feel like if that wasn't the case, they probably wouldn't say anything. They'd be like, fuck this guy. So I think that's really cool. It makes me happy. And then the dude I was talking about, that I met in transition, that was like, oh, a social media guy. I was like, yeah. He ended up catching up to me probably the last like 20 some miles of the bike. So probably past mile 90 or around mile 90. We met up with each other. And then he came up behind me and he was like, Liam, or whatever. And I was like, yeah. Which again, I never remember people's names, so I couldn't remember his fucking name. Don't take it personally. Anyone in my life, I just don't be remembering. And maybe that's just me making an excuse for myself. But yeah, so then he came up with me on the bike. I was like kind of with him a little bit, and then ended up passing him again. But then he ended up passing me, and then I didn't see him again till the run. But then I caught back up with him on the run, and I was like, hello there, sir. I think it was on lap 1 or lap 2. I don't even remember when I caught up to him. I know he's fit because he told me he ran a 250 marathon before this, so I know he's a fit guy. But that's where I think, not even again because I never said it, but having strong legs off the bike is almost more important than your fitness. Having strong legs paired with big fitness is like amazing. That's the ideal thing, but strong legs outweigh someone that's more fit than you, because arguably that guy's more fit than me. But then what I'm getting at is that I ended up beating the guy, even though he was giving me shit about being one of the social media dudes, which was cool for me because I kind of felt like I didn't have to prove myself to him, but it kind of felt good. Of course it felt good to be like, social media guy here, bitch. But no, that guy was cool. We got along. It was like a fun little, like, it wasn't a competition, but I think in my head both of us were kind of like, this fucking guy. But in like a fun little way. So that kind of felt good, I'm not even gonna lie. Granted, it was a time trial start, so he still could have beat me, technically. I have no idea. Because I don't remember his name, I can't look him up. Yeah, so then I passed him, and then that was the whole story with that. And then there's the dude I met on the bike at the very beginning, and then I met him again at the end. Which, it was when I got the 3-minute time penalty. So I had the time penalty, and then I was sitting there in the fucking box, and then this kid, his name was Collins, I do remember him. The kid I met when we were going to the bathroom, and then I saw him again at the very, very beginning of the bike. And then he caught back up again when I was standing there in the penalty box around mile 60-something. So I'm standing there, and I was like, hey! And then he rides by, and then I caught back up to him, and then we were pretty much riding together for most of it. Again, he was pretty much staying ahead of me the whole time. And then by the end, we were together the entire time, but he was definitely stronger than I was at the end on the bike. So my goal was, I was like, just fucking stay with this guy. So he definitely helped push me a lot, which was super helpful, and I told him that. And then, yeah, those are pretty much all the stories I have. Some girl came up to me on the bike too and was like, "Can you help me put this bottle in my cage?" on the back of her bike. So like, and this was towards the end of the bike too, so you're tired, and I'm like, if I fall putting this stupid fucking bottle in your bike, I'm gonna be so pissed. So pissed. But I was like, yeah. So I feel like that went on for a couple minutes of like trying to get it in there. Finally did that. And then, yeah, didn't get any flat tires, which that was my biggest concern on the bike, because I was like, if I get a flat, I had a spare tube, which I had it in here and I had it like rubber banded or whatever in there, but I don't remember not seeing it after the bike, but the morning when I went to pick up my bike, it wasn't in there, so it must have fell out on the bike. So either way, I'm glad that I didn't get a flat, because I didn't have any way to blow it up. There's like mechanics on course that ride by, and I'm sure they could have helped, but they're not. It's a 112-mile course. There's not a million of them all over the place, so I would have been standing there for a while, I'm sure. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And I tried to be very like cognizant of where I was riding, avoiding those little reflectors, not riding on rumble strips, obviously, and just when the roads got bumpy, which in general the course is actually very smooth. But when the roads got bumpy, just trying to read the road a little bit and make sure I don't hit some big bumps or anything stupid. And I seem to have done a good job, so that was awesome. I was very happy about that. And then, yeah, in general, super happy with how the race went. Obviously, if I didn't walk 8 stations and had the sodium you could be like, but I believe for myself that would have made a huge difference. And then, obviously, walking 8 stations would have helped a lot too. But in terms of my overall time, but in general, I can't really complain. I'm very happy with how that first race went. Especially with the swim. I didn't think, like I thought realistically I'd end up swimming closer to like 120 something, or like a high, like a 118 or 119. That's kind of where I thought I might end up. So I was really happy to see 111. When I got out of the water, I heard the announcer guy say 115. And I knew, I was like, that might not necessarily be accurate to me, because again, the time trial start stuff, which apparently I guess it wasn't, I was faster. But I was like, 115, fuck yeah, that made me happy. But if I heard 111, I'd have been even more fired up. But, so yeah, I'm pretty proud of the swim. And not in the sense of like, that was amazing, but just from where I started to where I got myself to with swimming was pretty cool, because, I mean, when I started swimming back in, I would periodically go swim before my last marathon, kind of within prep, and I would just go there just to get a feel for it. I wouldn't track anything, and it was hard to swim just 25 yards, granted 50 there and back was fucking hard. I was like, how am I going to swim 2 miles, 2.4 for that matter, in an ocean? How am I going to do this? So that honestly worried me. But you just keep showing up, you keep doing the damn thing, and you figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm pretty happy with myself for doing that and continuing to show up and trying to get better. I didn't have a coach. Not that that's something to necessarily brag about, but just to give context. I used ChatGPT for my plan, and I coached myself. I said, Liam, get out of bed and go ride that goddamn bike. Go run, go swim. Swimming was definitely, those were the things I dread the most. Just for whatever reason, I was just like, the swimming is just, that felt like the hardest thing to get over or to overcome. And then towards the end, those giant 100-mile rides into whatever distance run, those big old bricks were really, they were really intimidating at the start, but then they just became almost dreadful because they would just take up my entire day. And I just was so dug deep into like a recovery hole, or a lack of recovery hole, not getting in enough calories, not getting enough sleep. And just mentally, I think that was part of the reason why mentally I feel like I struggled a lot, because I just didn't have a lot of energy. And I felt like sometimes, like if you can think like, whoo, like ready to move, whatever. Like you're snappy, you have energy. I never felt like that for the last like few weeks of that prep or months or whatever. It was just like, and then when I'd be swimming, it was like I would just progressively feel more like shit as swim went on, and specifically with the swims, which maybe you just notice it more in the swims, but I was like, I don't feel like I'm getting better, I feel like I'm getting fucking worse. And especially towards the end, like I would cut some swims short because I was like, I just feel like as these go on, I'm just getting, like I just feel shittier and shittier. So I was like, and not in a good way. Like sometimes you push yourself hard and you're like, ooh, that was fucking hard, but that was good. Not these ones. I was like, this is actually, this is hurting me. This is not helping me. So that was really disappointing. And then mentally, it's like you don't have energy, and it's like you just kind of snowball and really get down on yourself. And then with everything, with just life, it's easy to compare yourself to people and like think, what am I doing? Everyone else has these fancy jobs and all these things, and here I am doing this with, like, what am I doing? So it's really easy to fall in that hole and spiral. And I definitely, I'll still do that, but I definitely did it then because I feel like I wasn't strong enough or resilient enough to like save myself from those times, at least not as much, so they would last longer, I guess. I don't know. But in general, hell of a prep, hell of an experience. Will I be doing another Ironman? If you're even watching for this long, because I'm probably talking for a really long time, yeah, I'm going to do more, 110%. And they do them all over the place, so that's kind of a cool prospect. And it would be cool to like qualify within my age group for like a worlds type of race. It wouldn't be like at me as a pro, but in my age group to be like, that could be cool. But I'd have to find like one, I need to continue getting better, and I'd probably have to find a race that's not as popular. Because like even in this Ironman race I just did, the only one I've ever done, there was like 148 something people, but I was like 22nd. And I think they only take the first like, I don't know if it's the 4 people or what it is, but obviously I've got some work to do. But if I was at like a smaller race or something, maybe I could. On the right day I probably could, but on the right day in like a small race, maybe I could, but not. I mean, I could be talking out of my ass. I really don't fucking know. I won't say that, but I think in the future, like that's a goal that I would like to work towards. Immediate goal though, we have a marathon, another marathon, December 13th, 2025, and the goal is to go under 3 hours. I think I was capable of a 2:59 back in May, like. Because I had that 22-mile run, I still talk about it, the 22-mile run where I averaged a 6:50, that was exactly what I needed to do for a race day. And I remember that run, and I almost looking back now, I'm like, I should have just finished it, got the time then, and then done it again. Or tried to do it again on the race day, and if I flopped then, it didn't matter because I already got the time. But I'm still confident that I could have done literally like a 2:59 marathon, 2:59, 59 even. I think I could have, that was within my wheelhouse. At this point in time, part of me feels like I'm worse. So part of me is like, am I going to be worse off? I don't really know. I'll see as training picks back up in terms of running. But theoretically, I should be even more fit to where I should be able to guarantee myself a time, as long as I'm smart and stay within myself, to go under 3 hours, because that's a huge goal for this year. I also still have to do the sub 5-minute mile, which I've been waiting to do just because I was so fatigued and just like within a hole during this Ironman prep that I was like, I don't need to be doing that right now. Or I didn't want to get injured or something, because it's aggressive to be running. Speed work's aggressive, and I need to do speed work now with this marathon. But I like doing it, but it is very aggressive on your body. But yeah, so that's the next goal, December 13th. That's sub 3 hour marathon. I'm not looking for a specific time, just under the 3 hour mark. That's all I want. That's all I care about. And then the beginning of next year, or just for 2026, I need to figure out plan-wise in terms of like, I have ideas in my head. Obviously, I'll do some more marathons. I know I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon in 2026 to run it in 2027. I would like to run the Chicago Marathon because I'm from Illinois, and I know a lot of people that have ran it last year and the year before, or this year and the year before. So then every time it comes up, I'm like, I should be there. Like, why am I not there? So I'd like to do that next year. But in terms of like a bigger race, obviously, it's either going to be an Ironman or I want to do, it'd be really cool to do like a 100-mile ultra. But the thing is with that, I don't know physically, like abuse-wise, if I can handle something like that yet, because I put so much time into the Ironman, so biking and swimming, so I'm not really building up my body to that level of abuse. Maybe fitness-wise I can handle it, but abuse-wise, I don't know. So that's kind of where, if I'm gonna do a 100-mile race, like I would want to start essentially like training for that now. So where I'm only running and implementing the bike sometimes and swimming sometimes. So I don't know. And I don't know that I'm willing to give up essentially all the work I've put into biking and more importantly swimming for that. So, and I didn't feel that way before the Ironman, because before the Ironman I was like, all right, like I'll probably do more of these, but I might need a break because it's so much. But now after the race, I don't know that I want to do that. So I'm thinking that maybe next year is more of like still an Ironman. Big race be Ironman kind of year. Not set in stone, but we'll see. But that is kind of how I feel currently. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I'm 25, so if I want to do 100-mile ultras, I have plenty of time to do those. But yeah, we'll see. I want to also just get some crazy marathon times. But that'll be fine to do with Ironman stuff because you still get, those guys are incredibly fit. So we'll see. I feel like maybe as I'm talking, it's becoming more clear in terms of Ironman stuff. So yeah, rough plans. Once I don't know, is anyone watching this long? Because now it's been an hour and 2 minutes. My throat is sore from talking so long. So yeah, if you watched this far, I love you. Follow me on Instagram. Like, comment, and subscribe. Who thought? I never thought I'd be saying something like that. Hey, guess what? Follow your dreams. And what I like to say is just follow the call. Follow the call. The intuition. What's it saying? What's it telling you? Follow it. I love you. I love you. I'll see you soon.